Well, it's news night. I'm Dave. Welcome to Dave Takes It On. Now, broken chargers, queues, slow charging speeds, not what you expect. We hear this all the time. And so many times people ask, what can we do about it? Do we just have to put up with it? Well, do you ring someone up? Is anyone going to answer? Is anyone going to pay any attention? And the answer is most of us, if we have a bad experience or can't charge, we just drive off to another charger, muttering and moaning to ourselves, and other people around us fall about laughing, saying, "Oh, I told you all this, we knew all this beforehand, get yourself a petrol car," etc. For a long time, we've needed to change it, and sites like ZapMap and WhatsApp, these don't seem to do it. They say they're live, they're up to date, they should show availability. They don't. They don't even always show the correct price. So there's really been no way that we have as individual EV drivers to correct this. Well, now there's a couple of options and AI comes to the rescue. This is artificial intelligence, and it's about time we found a real practical use for it. So what's actually happening? Well, Google has got involved. Google, obviously, massive internet company, computer company, they know a little bit about AI. And they're now using AI to help direct us to correct chargers. When I say correct, ones that are vacant, ones that are working, and ones that are running at full speed. So for the first time, if you use Google Maps to find your chargers, your nearest location, then you now have a number of options. First of all, what you see will be using AI and be taking all the latest data to try and give you a much more accurate picture as to what's actually going on at the charger that you're heading for. So it's going to be much more real time. It does that because with Google, you can actually contact Google. You can get in touch through the apps, through the maps, and you'll now be able to leave feedback. And that feedback, we're promised, goes straight into Google Maps and also goes off to the charging network, the CNO, charging network operator, in real time. So they will now be finding out what you're saying about their chargers. Now, don't expect miracles. This isn't going to happen overnight. But at last we have a direct route. And Google's not the only one. There is another company out there. I've mentioned them before in the past. It's at the ampersand sign charge, at charge. This is European site. And what they do is exactly this. They've been doing it for... Well, they've had it out for longer than Google's had it. I can't say they've had it longer than Google's had it, but Google's only just launched this. So both of these sites, the Google and the AndCharge, what they offer is a way for us EV drivers to get straight in touch with the charging network operators and to tell them what's happening. So if you get there and there's a massive queue, go on the app, go on Google Maps, tell them I've arrived, there's a big queue. It's live, and I'm told from both of them that will get straight through to the charging network operator instantly in real time. If when you go there you have a bad experience, you can't charge, report it on the app and you will get straight through, and that will go down as a strike against them. If you have a charging experience that works but is very, very slow, put that on the app as well. And there'll always be the traditional bit at the bottom, how would you rate us? At last, we've got an opportunity to tell the GridServes and the Ionities and the Instavolts and the Ospreys exactly what we think about them. But let's be realistic. Let's also look at it and tell them the good stuff. If we arrive and there are vacant chargers and the app says there were vacant chargers, and if when we get there we plug straight in and it connects, and if we get there and we get the full speed that the charger is capable of relative to the car, what is capable of receiving, then tell them that as well. Tell them had a good charging experience, it got this speed, didn't have any problems, connected, disconnected, everything was fine. So at last we've actually got an opportunity of getting in touch with the charging networks. Now, they are probably going to hate us because we are going to tell them how we find them. But you really must use these apps, the Google apps and the Uncharge app. Use them, because if they get a flood of complaints about, oh, charges were broken, massive queues, really slow speed, then they can no longer ignore it. I'm not sure. I'm making some investigations. I've got a meeting with Uncharge shortly to get a lot more detail about it. But what we think is it'll go down as a hit against them. It will actually flag up in the government statistics as well if they claim, oh, we got 96.8% uptime and reliability, but in actual fact they got an absolute flood of complaints. Those complaints now can't be ignored. We understand they can actually filter their way through to the government, so they can actually see, well, they're telling us they're 96.8%, but all these people are telling us they're absolute rubbish. So at last, it's an opportunity. This is a really great move by these two companies. Google, thank you. Uncharge, thank you. And I'll be doing a separate video on the Uncharge app once I've had the meeting with the company. It is a German company, and we'll find out a lot more detail about what's going on. Is there anything in it for us? Well, obviously, the first thing in it for us is if we get the feedback back to the CNOs and they actually do something about it, then that's a result in the first place. It means that in future, first of all, we're more likely to see on the Google app or the Uncharge app on the way there whether the system is working, and if we get there, it is what it's reported. So that should be an improvement. But after that, we don't know. We're just out in the dark. So we're just waiting to see from this, but this has been wanted for an awful long time. If this is the one thing that's actually going to kick these CNOs and start giving us decent reliability and accurate reporting, then it's a really good thing. The more of us use it, the better. Now, one thing I will say, if you do it on Google, that's the end of it. There's nothing in it for you, apart from your Good Samaritan bit and helping others. However, with Uncharge, there is actually a reward for you. Now, they have a sort of tiered layer, and you can do as little or as much or nothing that you want. It's not compulsory. But if you get involved, you can earn points, and points means miles in this case, or kilometres. So you can actually build up. And I did one recently at Ionity Charger near Darwin, and that one, it said, what do you want to do? I said, well, let's do a full review. And it said, right, are you in a position to photograph it? And I said, yes. And it actually said, it's dark. Do you still want to go ahead? And it was middle of the night, but it was actually quite well lit up. So I said, yeah. And they said, okay. And it asked me to take various photographs of the screen, of the QR code, of the state of it, of the hook, the suspension hook that holds the weight of the cable, and then stepping back to take a photo. And it did take a few minutes, but I have to say, I had a cup of coffee in one hand, camera in the other, and I was waiting for the car to charge. So it wasn't really a hassle to me. And it asked me to identify the charger. I submitted that. It said, thank you very much. Do you want to do another one? So I said, yes. I went and did another one. You don't have to do any of this, but if you don't, then you're going to risk turning up at chargers and they're not working. Now, with Uncharge, you get credit built up. So you get kilometres added to your account. I'm sure there are other things by now, but I'll find out after the meeting. By the way, if you want to see that video of Uncharge, the face-to-face meeting with the directors, then subscribe and click the notification bell so that we can notify you when we do launch the video. But the last time I used it, there was a reward scheme, and you just build up kilometres. It does mean that eventually, when you get enough kilometres, you can go along to one of these chargers, plug in, and just, it's like a Nectar card or a Tesco loyalty card, club card. You just say, I want to redeem my points, or in this case, redeem my kilometres. And in that case, you'll get free charging. So again, good result. Do your bit as a good citizen. Try and get these chargers to be more responsible for their actions, and you can get some free charging into the bargain. I think it's a win-win on this one. Let me know what you think. Okay, so we have the law of unintended consequences. We're talking now about Europe, and we're talking about EV production, which is not going terribly well for them. And we're talking about Chinese factories working in collaboration, in union, in merger with some of these companies. It's been going on for a long time. VW have got various relationships in China. BMW, Mercedes, they also have. They have manufacturing facilities. Well, they fund some of the Chinese companies and get some of the credit for the sales. So this has been going on a long time, but while it was over in China and they sold the cars in China, everyone was happy because the local, the Mercedes, the BMWs, the Fiats, all of these were actually doing quite well. They were getting the credit for the sales from the Chinese cars into the Chinese market. It made the company a little bit better and more profit, and it helped everybody. It didn't do anything for jobs because it was Chinese factories, Chinese jobs, just Fiat and Mercedes badging it. But it was good for the industries because they actually could count some of the profit from the Chinese ventures in their own figures. But it's not going that well. The Chinese are beginning to realise that actually we don't need the Europeans anymore. See, when this started about 3, 4, 5 years ago, probably even longer, then some of the European manufacturers had real good status. People like Mercedes, like Fiat and Ferrari, and they were respected names in the Chinese auto market. And a lot of the Chinese customers liked buying these premium premier products. It was a bit of one-upmanship for them. They didn't bother driving around in one of these cheap Chinese nasty things. They had a Mercedes or they had a BMW. And so it was a bit of a status symbol. What's happened is the Chinese have now stopped buying status symbols. They don't buy them anymore. And more importantly, they've virtually stopped buying petrol cars, ICE. So it's petrol, diesel, LPG. And so the only cars that the Chinese population are now buying, actually it's partly to do with subsidies, government subsidising them to buy them, but they're buying them anyhow. The only cars they're buying are EVs. And the Chinese are actually very, 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 very good at making EVs. They've had a lot longer history of it than we have. They started 20 years ago and they've been perfecting it ever since. Some of the early attempts, absolute garbage, but they've been getting better over the time. And some of the cars coming out of China now, some of the best you'll find in the world. They're well up there with the BMWs and Mercedes. So the Chinese have stopped buying the premium brands, the prestige brands, like the Mercedes, and they're looking for EVs. And when they look at the EVs that Mercedes or BMW or VW make, they're laughing at them. They are really not up to scratch. The technology, the computer systems, the interface, the infotainment system, they are decades. They're decades out of date. They really are compared to what the Chinese are doing. When you find the batteries they're using, these are batteries that were produced 5, 10 years ago. These were the early batteries, which are absolutely appalling. LG got into trouble with this, with the EVPoint over in America, where they kept on catching fire. The early batteries were not best suited towards EVs. They were designed originally for laptops and power tools. They were adapted for EVs, but all the proper EV companies have long since gone off those, and they're now making special ones. They're making the LFPs, and the LFPs, they don't catch fire. They are virtually indestructible. They're also cheaper, safer, lighter, everything going for them. So the Chinese now are stopping buying EVs made by the legacy autos, the European automakers. And that gives them a problem because they've got no decent EVs to sell them. They don't any longer want to buy the premium petrol and diesel cars that they make. So the sales of European cars into China is virtually drying up. It's almost dried up. And the Chinese are now buying masses of Chinese produced cars. That includes Tesla, who manufacture in China, and also BYD. And these are two well-respected companies. So what this is bad news for the European car manufacturers because they can't sell them to China. That was their biggest market. Around the world, a lot of the European market is now buying Chinese stuff because it's cheaper and actually quite a bit better. So you're seeing the European sales drop quite dramatically from the traditional makers, your Mercedes, your Fiats, your Alfa Romeos, your Peugeots, all of these. They're very, very much cheaper and better Chinese cars coming in. So one way round this is to form mergers again, only let's do a reverse merger. Instead of Volkswagen merging with a company in China, why not a Chinese company merge with a company in Italy? And Italy's all for this. They love it because Italy has got a, well, let's say it's not one of the top-notch auto manufacturers in Europe or the world. It's actually struggling a lot, and the government's got no money to put into it. And they want to become one of the world's leading EV manufacturers or factories. I don't think they care what they make, but they want to get back up there. So their premium brands like the Ferraris and Lamborghinis and everything else, they'll carry on. But they want to get the mass market now. So they've got a target of getting up to 1 million cars a year. And from where they are, it's quite a bold step. So Italy's all for it. They've got loads of money. Not enough to set up a factory of their own, but they got money to entice others in and give them a share of the proceeds. And there's a number of companies from China who are lining up trying to do something. I reported one of these last month, which was Chery, C-H-E-R-Y, Chery. Massive company over in China. Up until now, they've not sold anything into Europe at all. But they've been negotiating with Fiat for a long time now to try and get a factory in there. Well, that all seems to have fizzled out totally, but the whole venture isn't dead because Italy still wants them, and if one deal falls through, they just want another one. And there's another Chinese company called Dongfeng, and they've got 100,000 capacity. They want to start shipping cars into Europe and also set up a joint venture. And they've just announced that they will be opening a joint venture with a premium European legacy brand very, very soon. The announcement's out, so we assume it's already signed, just hasn't been released yet. When they say a premium brand, it's got to be something up in the BMW, Mercedes, not down at the Fiat end, I wouldn't have thought. They're not renowned for premium cars. So they're going ahead now, so there's others sniffing about as well. Chery still wants to come into Europe. They're just going to find another partner. And in actual fact, reported last month, they've already signed a deal with Spain. So they will be setting up a joint factory in Spain with Seat. And they will be manufacturing in Spain. And all this is going on. Italy wants in on the action. They probably will get together with Dongfeng. And that will boost their economy, boost their standing in Europe. It's got everything going for it. Apart from the European Union doesn't like it. You've got the Commissioner, Ursula von der Leyen, and she is now fighting China, trying to impose tariffs and get those tariffs retrospectively dated. So any cars they've ever imported into, exported out of or imported into Europe will be getting a retrospective levy on it. And she is working flat out to try and stop the Chinese coming into Europe. So you've got this lovely battle developing where you've got the individual countries that are just doing deals with China left, right and centre. They want the jobs, they want China in, they want some investment in, they want all the Chinese technology so they can make their cars the premium brand for a build quality and the technical expertise of the Chinese. That should be a winning formula. So they're all after the Chinese now. There's loads of negotiations going on. And on the other side of Europe, you've got Ursula von der Leyen trying to stop it all. We don't want the Chinese at all. It's going to destroy the local industry. And we've got the CEO of Stellantis now. He's chipped in. He's saying, we don't want the Chinese over here. We can cope on our own. So what you've got going on is a bit of protectionism from the European Commission, and you've got protectionism from Stellantis, and then you've got the protectionism of the legacy auto companies like BMW, Mercedes, VW and Fiat, who are desperately trying to sign up deals with the Chinese to give their industry a boost. No idea how this is going to end. It's a strange one because we do actually live in a very, very universal world where you can be buying something in you think is made locally, but some of the components were made in China, Taiwan or Vietnam, and you actually can't identify the source of an awful lot of the products or the components. So it's an interesting battle. We're not sure who's going to win this one. Stellantis, they haven't got a clue what they're doing. One minute they're saying they want to do a deal with Sherry, and the next minute when that deal falls through, they're saying they don't want the Chinese in at all. So there's a lot of toing and froing and battles going on. It'll sort itself out, and I suspect at the end of the day, tariffs will not work, because you can guarantee that if they impose tariffs on Chinese goods coming in, the Chinese will impose tariffs on European goods going out. And it might be cars if, for example, Mercedes get the build quality that they are famed for and mix that with the technology that the Chinese bring in. So they got the very latest computers, technology, stealth systems and everything you can think of. Those cars will have a value in China. The Chinese population would be happy to buy a prestige, premium European car. It's a status symbol if it has all the latest tech in it. So the Germans and the Italians, I think, are eyeing up. They can take some of their brand, their name and their quality back into China, and that will open up new markets. But if the Chinese just slap tariffs on European products, they can't do that. It's a strange world, isn't it? There are no simple answers to these problems. Going to keep an eye on this battle. It is an interest. Okay, it's probably old news by now. This is a once a week news review. But you'll have heard about Tesla. Two key staff have walked out. They've cancelled the Model 2, the one they haven't even launched yet. And they've sacked 10% of their entire staff all around the world. And the Q1 results announced at the end of March, just a couple of weeks ago, were nowhere near what they were expecting. Yet at the same time, they still have the world's best-selling car. Amazing, isn't it? So what's actually going on? Well, it's never quite as straightforward as the media like to present it. So if we take those one by one, let's start with the last one, the Q1 results. They were disappointing. The markets, what are the markets? It's people having a chat in a pub and coming up with opinion. We think Tesla's going to do this quarter, and therefore we'll tell everyone we're doing it. We work for Morgan Stanley, whoever it is, and we have a name and a reputation. So the whole of the financial world then says, oh, okay, I think you're right, we'd better do that. So these targets that the market sets, these are just guys chatting, saying, I think this is what they'll do. Anyway, they announced they were going to do it. They didn't. Tesla didn't reach that target, and they didn't reach their higher target that they had set themselves. But when you look into it, it's really quick and simple. They had a large number of setbacks. For example, most of you will remember some terrorists, arsonists, well, whoever it was, set fire to the electrical substation at Giga Berlin. Burnt the substation down, the factory had to shut down, everyone was laid off for 2 weeks. Police investigated, Elon investigated, everything was involved. They had to rebuild the electrical power station, connect back a whole pile of homes that were also taken offline at the same time. And all in all, Giga Berlin was down for the best part of 2 weeks. Well, 2 weeks production at a major factory like Giga Berlin is actually quite a few cars. You may also remember that, what was it? It was the terrorists again. Terrorists in the Red Sea heading up towards the Suez Canal. And it was the Houthis. And they got hold of some rocket launchers. And they were taking pot shots at ships sailing up through the Red Sea. Because coming from China, Indonesia, Australia, the shortest route is up the Arabian Gulf, up through the Red Sea, through the Suez Canal, and you're straight into Europe. Well, when they started taking pot shots with anti-ship missiles in the Red Sea, the insurance companies got a little bit, well, we don't like this, so what we're going to do is we're going to send our ships round. Well, It's a long, long way round. I don't know if people realise it, but you go right the way back down the Red Sea, right the way down round the Cape Horn, isn't it, Africa, and then right up the west coast of Africa, up to the Mediterranean, into the Mediterranean. It takes about 2 weeks to do the to do the journey there. So while those components, a lot of components, batteries for example, were coming from China heading to Europe, so while those components were heading there, the factories actually shut down. Once again, Giga Berlin, they shut down for 1 week. Other factories, they had some stock and they were able to keep going, but it was a major blow. Then of course there's been all sorts of strikes and everything else. So you end up with, they've lost a certain amount of weeks of production to effectively terrorists. In addition to that, it just happened to be those 2 weeks were the time they were converting the Shanghai factory over from the old Tesla Model 3 to the refresh model, which is called the Highland. And this was a highly anticipated upgrade. It's one of the first Tesla have done. They do very, very few upgrades of cars. They tend to just let them fizzle out and bring out a new one. But this there seemed to be a bit of public opinion against them. Yeah, your model's a little bit out of date. Sales had sort of levelled off. And so they decided, let's do a refresh. And it was a massive refresh. It really was dramatic. New suspension, double glazing all round. They have the LED matrix lights, whatever. It was, the motoring press called it a totally different car. They should not have called it a refresh. They should have renamed it a different car. It was huge. But of course, you also had the knock-on from that, because once people knew that the factory was being converted to make the new ones, who in their right mind is going to buy one of the old models? And as it turned out, when they launched the new Highland, it came out the same price as the old one. So anyone who bought an old one would be kicking themselves. I mean, Legacy Auto, whenever they do a refresh, it's always at a higher price. Tesla, no. It's actually cheaper for us to make it, so we packed more goodies in and we just kept it the same price. So there was a certain amount of people just backing off buying the old model until the new one came out. So if you had all of that together, Tesla's Q1 result was actually quite good. They overcame that stopping buying phase. They overcame all the lack of parts down through the Red Sea and the electricity substations. So all that they overcame. And they carried on production, and they only missed the target by 43,000 units. To put that into perspective, in a typical week, in a typical quarter, they'll make it around about 35,000. So in the whole quarter, with all this going on, they lost about a week and a half. And I think the headlines should have read, Tesla overcomes everything to produce a result only just under target. But of course, the media doesn't work like that. Now, Tesla, they've also lost 2 staff. Drew Baglini, one of the really key guys. He's been there an awful long time, a real pivotal character in there, very, very important to them. Again, the press have made big things, rats deserting a sinking ship and everything else. But when you look back over the last 3 or 4 years, they've lost, I think it's 40 executives in that time. Tesla, Elon Musk is a slave driver. He works 16 hours a day. He works 7 days a week. He sleeps on the factory floor sometimes if it's necessary, just to keep an eye on things. And he expects everyone else to do the same. So everyone who's ever worked for him, and there's lots of YouTube channels with people who've actually worked for him, and they have very high regard for him, but they say he's an absolute slave driver. You cannot keep that pace up. You get burnout. We see it in the city with the yuppies, the executives. You can only do so long as a bond trader or exchange, whatever it is you do, and then you burn out. Tesla's no different. So it's quite possible these 2 key staff had just reached the end of their time. I thought, yeah, if I don't get out now, I'm never going to get out alive. And they took that time to go. There's also this announcement about the scrapping of the Tesla Model 2. And again, that's not exactly what the media is portraying. And out of all this, don't expect Tesla to announce anything. The SEC, the Securities and Exchange Commission, have very strict rules what CEOs and CFOs and executives are allowed to announce. So when somebody writes, like the Reuters, give an absolutely false story about something, they can't even come on and say that's a load of rubbish. Because what can happen, that can have an influence on the stock price, and that's classed as insider trading, and you get into a lot of trouble for that. Some people do. So what's actually happening with the Tesla Model 2 is it's twofold, and one of those accounts for why at least one of the key staff has gone. Tesla want to build the Model 2, but they'll only build it when it's right. They don't have spare capacity at the moment, so they can't actually do it. If they were to make the Model 2, they would have to stop another production line somewhere else. There are new factories and new facilities coming online. Giga Shanghai has got an expansion underway. Giga Berlin has got an expansion underway, as has Giga Texas. And of course, a lot of people have heard about the factory in Mexico, which is seemingly on hold at the moment. And the answer is they don't have the capacity to make the Model 2 in sufficient numbers to be able to reach the level at which mass production kicks in, and the cost per car of production goes plummeting downwards. So it is not that there's no demand for the car, it's that they can't make enough of them at the moment. You've got things like batteries, components, and also key staff. If you're opening up a new factory in Mexico, you have to staff it. And one of your options is just to take people from elsewhere. That is going to have an impact on your existing business. So all of this is going on, and Elon, for whatever reason that he knows that we have no idea about, he's decided that they're going to slow down the rate of production for the Model 2. At the same time, many people might have noticed that Tesla has just launched full self-driving for everyone now. Anyone who's got a Tesla can now, if they've already purchased the option, will just activate full self-driving, and anyone who hasn't has the option now of not buying it but of renting it. They've dropped the price to $99 a month. Now, one of the beauties of this is towards the robotaxis. Robotaxis need to have full self-driving to work, and it doesn't work at the moment. So what have they released? What they've released is what they call a level 3 self-driving or driver assist facility, which means that it probably can drive itself, but you've got to be in there, you've got to be holding the wheel or have your hands fairly close to the wheel, and you've got to be looking where you're going because it's not yet finished. It's what they call a beta in software. It's pretty good, it's probably going to work, but there will be occasions where it's going to be totally baffled as to where it's going, what it's doing, and it will need a human to take over. And we saw this with Waymo, with one of the cruise drives, where there was an unfortunate accident. The car was driving along and it was totally blameless. Someone coming the other way, they think it was a drunk motorist, hit a pedestrian, and that pedestrian was thrown in front of the cruise autonomous car, no driver in it, and the car actually ran over him. It wasn't the car's fault. It was, if you jump out in front of someone, there's nothing you can do about it. So the car was not to blame. However, it slammed the brakes on, came to a halt, and when they'd realised it had stopped, it could no longer see that there was someone under the car. Why would it? You don't put cameras under cars. So it didn't know there was actually a pedestrian seriously injured under the car. And the Robotaxi had been programmed, that in the event of any accident, get yourself to a safe place, out of traffic, out of pedestrians, out of harm's way. So the Robotaxi obeyed its programming. It did what it was told. It suddenly realised, I'm in the middle of the road, we've had some sort of accident, I need to get to safety, and it set off to try and pull towards the pavement to get out of the way. Unfortunately, the person was still underneath, so instantly all cars banned, everything else, full inquiry, everything, and effectively they were taken off the road, and it looks like now they're never going to reopen. But it was not the Robotaxi's fault, it was the guy who programmed it. And that's the difference with Robotaxis and with level 3 autonomy, is that you do need the driver intervention. They are not clever enough on their own. What Elon is developing is actually level 5, which is full self-driving, which is you can sit in the back seat and go to sleep, take me to the supermarket, take me to Fred's house and then pick him up and we're going to the pub, and you can go to sleep in the back seat safely, legally, everything else. Now, there's a big debate as to whether people want this. Yeah, some people do, some people don't. But that's where Elon is heading with full self-drive. Getting back to these two key executives, they are all gung-ho for, let's go for the Model 2, let's launch that one, blah, blah, blah. That'll be a world-beating success. If the Model Y was a world-beater, imagine what a car half the price actually does. And they apparently were all for the Model 2. Elon, well, why did he do it? I can only suspect he knows stuff that we have no idea about. He probably knows how close Tesla is of going from level 3, which is what they are at the moment. They call it full self-drive. It isn't. It's full self-drive beta. But only he knows how close they are to going from level 3 to level 5. And level 5 now opens up a massive, massive market for them if that's what he thinks they're just about to achieve. Well, first of all, any Tesla car on the road today can just, on the screen, on the app, just say, I want full self-drive, and it's done. And you've got an option of either buying it, I think over there it's about $12,000, it's not cheap, but they also offer a $99 a month subscription. And you can imagine there's 6-7 million Teslas on the road today. If even a quarter of them decide to do it, there'll be over 1 million cars, all paying $99 a month. This is a massive revenue for them. So they want full self-driving working level 5. But also it then opens up robotaxis fully. Now, just to give you an example, people underestimate these. I checked up recently, if you look at the price of a taxi, I went recently from home to the airport, went off to Menorca. Any of the regular viewers will have seen some photographs from there, some videos that I did over there. But I had to get to the airport, and I'm about 40 miles from the airport. So I've got a choice. I can either get the train, it's really awkward, it costs me about 20 quid, 30 quid. There are no stops, but then you've got to get out of the station, then you've got to walk. It's not a taxi ride, but it's a long walk from the station through to the airport. It's not the best thing to do, and particularly not if you're going for a 5 o'clock flight in the morning. Ours was 6 o'clock or something. So the other option is to take a taxi, and I was quoted £140 for a return trip. So they would come to the house 4 o'clock in the morning, pick us up, drive us to the airport, and then when we come back, pick us up and bring us home. And the other option, of course, was to drive and park at the airport. That's eventually what I did. It's just, to me, less hassle. So you jump in your car, drive to the airport. It was about, I think it was £78 or £80 to park for the 10 days we were, 2 weeks we were away. So the car sat there, and when we came out, it was waiting for us and brought us home. So that's where we are. So I had a choice of 30 quid on the train, lot of hassle, 140 quid for a taxi, or 80 quid for driving myself. Now, when I look at that taxi fare, £140, I've got to realise that I've done these calculations recently, looking at the cost of running a car, and it's coming out round about £1 a mile. This includes your road tax, your insurance, depreciation on the vehicles, servicing, maintenance, fuel, absolutely everything. It's round about £1 a mile. So this is 45 mile one way, 45 another, that's £90. And that means that that driver's making 50 or 60 quid out of that journey. A lot of the fare that we do actually goes towards so an awful lot of the fare, about a third of it, probably a bit more, goes to the driver as wages. So when we look at robotaxis, these are just taxis without a driver. First of all, they don't have the same £1 a mile running costs, because electric cars do cost less. there's less road tax, there's less maintenance, servicing, everything, or virtually nil. And electricity, if you are someone like Tesla and you can get it, buy it and sell it at cheap rates through the mega packs, it means you can get really cheap electricity, and electricity is cheap anyhow to the likes of Tesla. So instead of £1 a mile, it might cost 50p a mile, something like that. So as a Robotaxi, you can make a nice little bit of a profit by charging half price or less. And that means that I would then have a choice. So if the Robotaxis are around, I could ring up the local taxi firm, that could be 140 quid. I can ring up a Robotaxi, on an app, and the Robotaxi might quote me 70 quid. I don't know. I've got a choice. I can take one or the other. If I take the Robotaxi, the only difference is it's just a taxi. It's a perfectly serviceable and friendly, clean car. It just doesn't have a driver in it. So I'd get in it with all the bags, everything else. When we're all in, door shut, press a button, say we're ready to go. Off it goes. It'll drop me off right outside the door like a taxi does. Off it goes to the next customer. But if that's half price, I would be very tempted to use it. Now, there's a lot of people don't like the idea of self-driving cars, no drivers in it, but a lot of people will if it comes down to price. If that was even lower, and this is where Elon's heading, you have in a Robotaxi a battery. These are 40, 50, 60 kilowatt hour batteries. These are big batteries. And when they're not out on a fare earning money, they'll be plugged into a charger. And this is now called something called vehicle to grid. So they're connected into the grid. They will be taking a charge from the grid when the prices are low. And when the prices are high, they will be selling back some of that energy back into the grid for a profit. This is electricity buying and selling, trading. Now, sometimes in the middle of summer, when all the solar panels working and it's a bit windy, you've got the wind turbines working, and everyone's out down the beach, we don't use a lot of electricity, but we still produce a huge amount. And at those times, electricity can actually turn negative. So it means the grid will pay you to take electricity off of a wind farm, for example, because otherwise they're going to have to shut it down. So you can actually get not free electricity, but you can get paid to take electricity. So these Robotaxis will be trading electricity like mad when they're not taking a fare somewhere, and when they're taking a fare, they're being paid by the passenger. So these are going to earn money 24 hours a day. And by doing that, if they make more money on trading electricity than they cost on running the fares about, the fares effectively become almost free. Well, we'll never get them free, but they could even come down a lot lower, maybe 40 or 50 quid, to get me to the airport and back again. And at that price, an awful lot of people will say, yeah, I'm going that way, because it's best part of £100 cheaper. And Elon has seen this, and he, I think, believes that he can get this running very, very quickly. We're talking about a couple of months maybe. There's actually an announcement on the 8th of August about full self-driving. Very tight-lipped. Nobody knows exactly what he's announcing. Everyone's hoping it's the launch of a full self-driving for the world. And then at that point, the problem is, do you make the Model 2? You see, when you make a Model 2, you sell it, and they'll sell. There'll be a massive demand for them. A cheap car, £25,000, $25,000, massive demand for them. They're going to sell out for years to come. But you sell them once, and you might make £5,000, £6,000, £7,000. That's it. If you make a Robotaxi, it costs about the same. It's still a car, still has wheels, everything else. Doesn't have a steering wheel or brake pedals. You don't need them. And when you've made it, you allocate it as a Robotaxi, and it's cost you money. It's cost you whatever it is to make it, maybe £15,000, £20,000. You get nothing back. However, as soon as that goes out and starts plugging in, trading electricity, and then going out and taking passengers around, it starts earning you money. And it's projected that these Robotaxis could produce up to £20,000 income each year. Wow, £20,000, that's 3 times what they make if they sell a Model 2, and they can have these making £20,000 a year for the next 10, 15, 20 years, however long these things last. So a Robotaxi in the short term is very, very cost intensive, but after the first year, they probably pop into profit, and then the second year onwards, they're just a money printer. So Elon, I think, has decided full self-drive's on the way. We can do it. We can get these robotaxis out there, and we need them on the road. And they will make us more profit for Tesla than it would if we use that factory to make Model 2s. Now, I know everyone's waiting for Model 2s, but from a business point of view, why make £7,000 on a car when you can make 20,000 a year from the same factory for the same cost? And I think that's where Elon's heading. But we'll have to wait and see. We have to get over one thing, and that is most people don't want to get in a car with no driver. It's not an easy one to overcome. There has to be an answer. I think the answer is going to be something like, you'll go down the pub, you will find that, I know you have a few drinks too many, you've driven there, and someone calls a robotaxi and it turns up, and there's no driver in it, you're drunk, and you're, oh yeah, let's get in it, let's pull, off you go. There'll be other group of people who go, oh, let me in, I want to see one of these working, I've never been in a car with no driver, I want to have a go. And the other people, you know, over my dead body, do I ever get into one of those or trust any of my family? So there'll be a mixture. But I believe there'll be a massive demand in the first place from the small number of people who say, yeah, let's go for it. It's cheap, it's fun. You know, I've never been in a car self-driving before, so let's have a go in it. But also there's going to be an advantage for looking much longer term, longer distance, not longer term. For example, if you want to go on holiday down to Cornwall, there'll be nothing to stop you booking a robotaxi, and it'll drive you down to Cornwall. You can go to sleep in the back if it's a 7-8 hour journey. You go to sleep in the back. Robotaxi doesn't sleep. It'll drive you down there, and when you get down there, it'll drop you off your hotel, your campsite, or anything, and off it disappears. While you're down there, if you need transport, you just got an app, you can book another robotaxi, pick me up at the campsite, take me down to the beach, that sort of thing. And then when you're ready to go, jump back in, pick up a car, it'll drop you back home. And that could be significantly cheaper than the cost of driving yourself or the cost of a train or a plane. So they have longer term attractions. Also for some companies, they will have a delivery element. You can book a robotaxi and you can say, right, there are 6 parcels in there. These are the addresses. Go to the first one, toot the horn. We'll ring the customer, tell him it's on its way. The customer will come out, door will open. You take out your parcel. Car goes off to your next one. It's actually quite a neat system. Load of uses for it. And I think Elon's seeing all of these uses. So that's where we're heading. So it's not just Tesla. We've seen now that Volkswagen with their ID Buzz. This is the really cool Volkswagen Caravannette type style vehicle. And they've actually got them running at this moment today in Hanover, in Germany, as robotaxis, driverless cars. They're on trial. Probably at this stage you'll have a driver sitting in to make sure, but they've got all the latest radar and everything else, and these are actually being trialled. They're on the roads at the moment. There are no Tesla full self-drive on the road that we know of at the moment, so VW ID Buzz seems to have got the jump on Tesla. However, the systems they use are radar, lidar, cameras, ultrasonic, micromillimeter radar, cameras, lights, ultrasonic. It's, you name it, they are absolutely stacked with sensors, around about 20 or 30 sensors, and they can only go on pre-mapped routes, so they can work out within a millimetre where the car is on that route, and anywhere on that route it can avoid obstacles and everything else, which is fine. But it can't go off that route. It's a stupid system. It can only, it's a bit like a train. Here's your road, you can go anywhere down that road that you want, but you can't go off the road. And they're great for taking people from the airport to a hotel, or from a hotel to a shopping centre, or shopping centre to the beach, popular routes, and they can pre-map them and everything else. But you can't pre-map the whole of the world's roads. So these will only ever be what they call ring-fenced. They will only ever be specific areas. And one of the problems with them is they're expensive. These cars are not cheap to start with, but on top of that, you have to have all the sensors, the LiDAR, the radar, and everything else. And that adds thousands and thousands to the cost. Tesla's approach is very simple. Just take any car, any Tesla that's been built in the last 5 years can become a robotaxi. It's got the cameras, it's got the computers, it's got everything in it. All it needs is the software and off it goes. So Tesla have a massive advantage that they can use any car. These ring fence ones can only use these fully kitted out sensor laden cars. And then the Tesla ones can go anywhere you want. You could literally, in America, say, take me from Washington right the way down the west coast, right the way down to the tip of Argentina, South America, Brazil, wherever it is. And it's quite happy. It doesn't matter where you go. It'll take you there because it's using vision and AI. So there's a lot going on with robotaxis. No idea where it's going to end up. I've got my money on Elon. I really think, first of all, he's going to win. He's going to come up with a system that will do everything that we want. And secondly, if he gets it, if he wins, he already has about 4 or 5 million cars out there. There's some that older cars. My car can't ever do this. But there'll be 4 or 5 million cars out there on the road. And he will offer the drivers the option of using their car as a robotaxi when they're not using it. So he will have a fleet of anything up to a couple of million robotaxis at any one time, plus whatever's churning out of the new factory. And he's got a massive advantage, whereas someone like VW ID Buzz, they've got to kit out individual cars every single time, and they'll be making them literally a handful a week. So if Elon full self-drive his work, it's going to be massive. Anyway, we'll see, but my money's on it. Okay, takes me back to the 60s. Bubble cars. Oh, a lot of my viewers I know are of a certain age where bubble cars will mean something to them. And these are tiny little things. You open up the whole of the front, single seater or double seater, they did too. And these are tiny little things. You know, you could literally pick them up and wander off with them. They're brilliant. And they're great in traffic. You can go anywhere, you can park. If there's a parking bay there, you can probably get 3 in it, in the same space as one. It's a good one for the parking meters. Who pays? Anyway, they're great. They've just launched the first of the electric bubble cars, and these are brilliant. Absolutely horrendous price. They're heading up about £17,000-18,000, which is crazy sort of money, but they'll sell. They really will sell. You see, what's been happening in the car market is cars are getting bigger. If you ever want to see this in action, just go online and have a look at a 1960s Mini and then put that photograph in comparison to a 2024 Mini. And the 2024 Mini is a massive car. It's huge compared to the little Mini. 10-inch wheels, doors which had wire pulls, sliding window. They were amazing, but really basic cars, but really tiny little cars. And the trend recently is to go over to these SUVs, the big heavy ones. So cars have been getting bigger and bigger and bigger. What they call them Chelsea tractors. These are the big Range Rovers, Land Rovers, Discoveries, and all sorts of things. And the cars are getting bigger and heavier, and there is a real worry now, and it's not just from EVs, but from these cars. They get very, very heavy, and in a multi-storey car park, if there's enough EVs and these Chelsea tractors and the big SUVs and then they are going beyond the limits, the design limits of the loading on the floor. We come across this all the time. I was in the computer industry for a little while, and in one of the London stock exchanges, they had a habit of every time they upgraded their computers, they would just cut the old wires off, leave them in there, and then feed new wires through. And at least one of the buildings in London actually exceeded the loading capacity for the floors in the weight of cables that were disconnected, cut off, and left inside the wall. So when they design a building, it's always designed with specific factors in mind. And these Chelsea tractors, these big SUVs, are first of all much heavier than they anticipated, but also they're a lot wider. Some of these cars are pushing right on the limits of what is allowed on the roads today without having to have a vehicle in front, danger wide load. And certainly when you go into a parking bay, if you've got one of these big SUVs, one of these big Range Rovers or whatever they are, then if there's another one alongside you, you've got no chance of getting out. So the weight of cars has been increasing, the size of cars has been increasing, our roads are getting busier and busier, and we've just got 2 new entries into the market. The first one is the bubble car, absolutely brilliant. There are others on the way. BYD's got one coming out, the Seagull, tiny little thing. There are micro cars out. What has it got? Toyota, Igo. No, there's loads of them coming out. Really tiny. Citroen C1, little tiny cars, effectively 2-seaters. Some of them have a pretend couple of seats in the back. They don't. The boot's so small you have to use the back seat. But these are great, and you can park these bubble cars. You can park them face onto the curb, so you can get 3 in a parking space. So these are heading, and at the same time, Kia's just announced the heaviest car. And this one's got 3 rows of seats. It's a monstrous car. It's huge. It's got a much bigger battery than normal. This will be a really heavy car. But it's 3 rows of seats. Now, I've got that with my car. I've got a Tesla Model S, and I've got the rear-facing seats. This is, they fold down into the floor. It's like one of these fold-up sofa beds. So in my boot, it's a huge boot, but if I take the floor panel up, underneath it, there's a twin seats, child seats. I can just pull those out, they open out, click in place, lock in place. The bottom is hinges welded to the chassis, and the top goes into posts which are clicked firmly. And they have the full safety harness on them for the children, rear facing. So that makes my car 7-seater, and the number of times that's been of useful to me is absolutely amazing, because just me and the wife, we've got no kids left at home, we've got children and grandchildren. If ever we go out and meet the children, Jonas, he's got a wife and 3 kids, so I can go out with me and my wife in the front, Jonas and the wife in the back, the youngest one still in the child seat in the back seat, and then the 2 boys right in the back, and they love it in there because they go out and they wave to everyone. I'm sure I'm going to get arrested by police one day with, a lorry driver looking in saying, "You got kids in the boot." But I do say when we get to we went out the other morning for a breakfast, big 7 of us. When you open up the boot, kids get out and people walking past going, and then they look in and they go, "Hey, that's neat." It's a real attraction. Having 7 seats is really good. But this Kia EV7, it's a big car. It's a big car. My wife won't drive mine. It's too big. So, don't know. Bubble cars, they won't catch on big time at that price. But some of these Chinese cars and the BYDs, for example, they're going to come in with these micro cars, they call them. And they're going to be really good. They're really light, spacious, absolutely ideal for 2 people. Bit of luggage in the back or a set of golf clubs. That's all you need it for. So we'll see which way this one goes. But a lot of councils are starting to impose restrictions on big, heavy cars. Interesting to see where that one goes. Well, Boston Dynamics, meanwhile, has just trashed Atlas. We've all seen the videos with the dogs dancing and everything else. And one of the big robots, the Atlas, this is the one that does the dancing, if ever you've seen it. If you haven't seen it, just Google Boston Dynamics dancing robots. It is amazing what they can do, and they got a couple of these robots, and the one which is the dog, it's a robot, but it looks like a dog, 4 legs and everything else. And they dance. They can dance to music, and they're absolutely brilliant. By the way, Tesla's got one of those. Whenever they launch their rockets, when the rocket's gone up, they send these in. They've got a few of them. They send them into the site to walk around. Doesn't matter, radiation, heat, anything. They just wander around. They film everything, make sure it's safe, and when it's safe, the humans go in and do whatever they have to do. So they've got a great use. However, Boston Dynamics, it's been going 25, 30 years. And these things, they're selling for like £200,000. £100,000 for the dog and £200,000 for the robot. It's not a business. But it is a great testing bed for all of these things. And they've just decided that they've gone as far as they can with the hydraulics. So when you move, we use muscles. But robots will use different methods, and one of the methods they use is hydraulics. So you'll have a big high pressure pump somewhere, and then you'll have, a bit like a JCB, you'll have pipes going down, and then you'll have actuators on the end. So when it wants to grab something, it will activate the activators, and the hydraulics, the high pressure liquid, will close the hand and grab hold of it. But that's really run its course, and they've decided they can't go any further with it. It's reached the end of its life. Concept is still good. They still make the robots, but what they've decided is that the hydraulics is not the right way to go. So you just got to think, after 30 years of making these things, and they've just said it's not the best way of doing it. Well, I find that a bit strange. However, what we're told is that they're switching over to electrical activators. So instead of having a hydraulic pump with pipes and then actuators, you simply, on an elbow, for example, have a motor here. And you can do it, you can have it on there, you can have on the fingers, body, everything else. Much more efficient, much smaller, much more efficient, very, very powerful, but also very sensitive. And that's what Tesla did, by the way, with the Optimus robot. They looked at the design, they obviously had a number of these Boston Dynamics ones, and they decided that that was not the way they wanted to go. So they, from scratch, started making. Great when you own a factory, isn't it? Well, you own two factories. You own SpaceX, which deals with space materials, and you got Tesla, which deals with space age cars. And they just set a department aside, and they said, just do whatever you want. And they've come out with a load of what they call actuators. And these are just little electric motors that operate exactly the same as these hydraulic pistons and everything, but much more powerful, much quicker, much more sensitive, much better, and also an awful lot cheaper to make. So this is the way Boston Dynamics going. So we're likely to see in the next few weeks, months, years, I don't know, sometime they're going to start coming out with the new Atlas, the new all singing, all dancing. Well, it probably will be all singing, dancing. Be the Atlas, and that one will be along the lines of what Tesla's doing with Optimus. In the meantime, Mercedes, they've also got a division going, and they are going flat out trying to get these things going. Now, robots aren't new. They've been around for decades, hundreds of years. They really have. And in the motoring industry, for example, almost all the heavy work now is done by robots. These are not robots in the traditional sense. They're bolted to the floor, but they will have an arm and they will reach out and pick out a sheet of metal, put it on one thing, it will stamp it down and cut it. They pick it up, put it on another, it'll stamp it down and bend it into a bonnet or whatever it is. They're still robots. They're just not walking, talking, singing, dancing robots. So what they want to do is they want to extend the use of robots. This is not Tesla, this is now every automaker. They want to extend the use of robots in the factory. For the simple fact is, and we did this recently on a film, I'm trying to remember the exact figures, when they were looking to build a new car in Europe, they chose Poland because making it in Poland would cost 10,000 euros less than making it, I think it was Italy. 10,000, that's labour. The only difference between the two is the labour cost. The Poles work for a lot less than the Italians. Now, if it's 10,000 euros different to make one car because of the cost of labour, you can imagine how much of the cost of a car is actually labour in total. If you can get one robot, Boston Dynamics Atlas or an Optimus Prime from Tesla or one from Mercedes, that has hands, arms, hands and fingers and can articulate, then if you've got that, put a couple of cameras on it, put a battery on it, everything else, give it some legs, and now it can do almost everything that a human can do, plus more. So, for example, it can work 24 hours without stopping. Humans can't do that. It can also work to incredible accuracy. We always have a slight tremor in our hand, a robot might not do. But if we need hands and fingers to put on lots of bolts, slot in cables or whatever it is, if you can produce a robot which can do that for you, then a one-off robot, and Tesla's talking about a price of $25,000, $30,000 for each one, that can replace one person for a whole 30 years. No wages, so you buy one of these for $25,000 and you just set it to work, and all you have to do is once every so often you plug it in and recharge it. And if you're clever, you'll find it a task to do. For example, I don't know, threading wires into a wiring loom where it's static but using its fingers, and while it's there it will plug itself in and it will charge up while it's working. So you can actually get 24 hours use out of these things. Now when that comes in, and they've got lots of these, and Tesla already have them working on the factory floor, as do others, then the cost of cars will come down because you can virtually eliminate the labour element. So it's €10,000 cheaper to make a car in Poland purely because of the labour costs. If you get robots to do it, it will drop more than £10,000 off the price. Interesting, isn't it? But in doing so, it lays off tens of thousands of auto workers. So, balance. Do we want nice cheap cars, or do we want people in jobs in Germany? That's a philosophical question for you, the viewers. But my only question is, Boston Dynamics, their robots, when you see them dancing, is absolutely stunning. But it's taken them 30 years to get this far, and now they've scrapped them and they're bringing out a new model. Tesla comes out last year with the first of the Optimus, and already they're actually working on the factory floor. Yeah, they're working there already. Limited numbers, they're on the test, but they're amazing. And one of the things that most people don't appreciate with them is, if you have one robot and you teach it how to thread wires for a wiring loom or put a headlight in a car, when you make the next one, all you do is just program it with the same memory, and it can now do that. And it can do another job and another. And if another robot goes outside and cuts the grass, it then just sends a signal to all the other robots, so they can all now cut the grass if they're needed to. And if one is good at carrying parcels from one part of the place to the other, that's what they'll do. And as each robot comes out of the factory, you can just program with everything all of them have ever learned. So it's now getting bigger and bigger and bigger brain, can do more and more tasks. And in the end, this is going to go into farms, for example. They complain, where's it, East Anglia, they complain about they don't have enough fruit pickers. They import them from Eastern Europe every year. They always have a shortage. You can imagine now, buy one Optimus robot, just send it out 24 hours a day. Pitch black, doesn't matter, they've got infrared. And they just wander around the fields, picking strawberries, put them in a power plant, picking strawberries. You wake up in the morning, have your breakfast, come out, oh, there's a trailer full of strawberries for you. It's got to happen. It's really got to happen. So keep an eye out for this. Well, Tesla V4 chargers seem to be taking over the country at the moment. It was announced last year that BP Pulse is going to be buying £100 million worth of these V4 chargers for the UK. And the first of those, I believe, will be installed sometime later this year. EVPoint, in the meantime, this is part of the EG Europe group, which is based in Blackburn, Lancashire, just up the road from here. They own EVPoint, which is Eurogarages, and they also have just signed a deal with Tesla to buy the V4s. So what are these V4s? Well, first of all, they're Tesla made, and if you ask any EV driver anywhere in the world which are the most reliable chargers, just Tesla. They're always working, always good, very reliable, very powerful, very, very simple to use, everything. So they have a massive reputation for reliability. Now, the early attempt at putting in an EV charging network, non-Tesla, using the likes of Osprey and Instavolt and what was the other one, Electric Highway, were absolute disaster. These chargers fell apart very quickly. It's really strange. We did a video recently at Chester East services on the M56. And these were brand new ABB units. They were grid serve 350 kilowatt chargers. We saw them go in, we saw them switch on, went back next week, and they were actually down for repairs. Something had gone wrong, they got them up working. We've been back a few times, we go past there quite often, and every time there's something wrong. There's some charger not working or not getting the full power. And these are new, these have not been in 6 months. So if that's what you're getting with other chargers, you can see why some people are saying, let's just buy a Tesla V4, we can put it in, leave it alone. Or, if they've got any sense, they'll include it on the Tesla maintenance contract. Now, don't know if you know, but Tesla have a fleet of charger engineers who just drive around the country. That's it. They will go wherever they need it. And Tesla on the V4s, well, on all the chargers, has a software monitoring system. So if you ever go there, plug in, and it doesn't charge, and you think, oh, I'll just try a different charger, that's fine. You go to a different charger. But that failure to charge will have been registered on the system. And they don't take any action. One of those, it could have been my fault, could have been the car, could have been the charger. If I go to a second one and I plug my car in, it knows what car it is. They talk to each other. And if that one doesn't work either, they'll now begin to say, hang on a minute, that was working a minute ago, it's had 2 failures, that's to do with the car, no further action. However, if the second one I plug in and it does charge, it means there's nothing wrong with my car or this charger, it's that charger's got a fault on it. So it'll be flagged. Someone else comes along at a later date, plugs in, and they get a failure to charge, then what will happen? That will raise a service issue, a service... I don't even know the word for it, but it'll be a service request. And what will happen is it'll go out to the nearest engineer saying, look, when you're passing, just call in and have a look at this one. If in the meantime they get a third failure to charge, it flags up as a service call. Yeah, wherever you're going, get yourself around and get back here. This one needs to go down. Now, when you're on the Tesla app or in your car looking at Tesla ones, you can actually see which ones are down. It tells you which ones are out of service. It's not like others, which says, 7 out of 11 available. You know there are 12 there. You can work out one of them's down. This one says the 12 chargers, 7 of them available. Charger number 3A is non-operational. They tell you. And what you can do from that, you can actually keep an eye on it and find out how long it lasts. And I've never seen one last for more than a day. They usually will they'll either clear up on their own or they'll get a visit from an engineer. So with that, and those engineers going round, Tesla would be really well advised to offer that as a service to BP Pulse and to EVPoint and say to them, look, with these chargers for only 50 quid a year per charger, we will give you the same service that we have for ours. If it breaks down, we'll come and fix it. We made them. We know what's wrong with them. And they will offer that as a service. And that's an extra income for them, but it's an extra worry less for BP Pulse and EVPoint. So very, very tempting for them to sign up to buy the V4 chargers from Tesla and to buy a maintenance contract as well. This is all just generating revenue for Tesla. Doesn't cost them anything anymore. That engineer is already on his rounds. He just has an extra stop or two to call into if and when they fail. So it's really a virtual profit maker. It just pocket that money and use existing costs to cover what they cost. So that's one way of going. Now, the reason we mention these is they're going in up the road. I've been keeping an eye on these for some time now, and they've been going in. It started off, it's quite a strange story, but it started off as an EVPoint, and they put in their traditional chargers. These are 300 kilowatt chargers, dual bay, so each one they actually get 180, is the way they work it. And they were dual bay, so they had 3 dual bay chargers. We saw them going in, we saw them being fitted, and then we went there just before Christmas. We did a film. If you haven't seen that one, just check in the playlist below on the chargers and you'll find it in there. And we made a bit of a joke about it for 2 reasons. First of all, there was a massive puddle. It was so big and deep that you couldn't actually get to the charger. And there were a lot of people saying, oh, yeah, I'm going to stand in a puddle while I'm charging my car with 250 kilowatts of power. But luckily they never opened. But secondly, they had a small canopy over them. but the canopy had holes drilled in it. Weird. Anyway, we followed it to see what they were going to do about it, and then what happened next was the canopies disappeared. Okay, went back a couple of weeks later, and these are literally 3 minutes up the road. Went back a few weeks later, and the charges had disappeared. Had a word with the manager in the Starbucks, which overlooks it. It's in the car park of Starbucks. And she said that they had a problem with subsidence. They had a problem, and the things were collapsing. It had collapsed onto the drains, and that's why you were getting the flooding. So they were going to have to dig it all up, but they can't dig it up with the chargers. They were actually live at the time. They hadn't switched on, but they had power to them. So they took all the chargers out, took all the cables out and everything, and then they dug the whole thing up. I've been back and filmed it about 4 or 5 times now, different stages. And then time before last I went, and there were a whole pile of Tesla V4 chargers there. But, whoa. Well, it is EVPoint. The services, Matrix Services, is an EG, which is the Euro garages, and that's the ones who run EVPoint as an EV charging network. But I was surprised to see them. They were badged as Tesla. Whereas other ones I've seen photographs of, they're badged as EVPoint. So I was wondering whether they were going to come off. Anyway, got back there last time and met up with the engineers who were actually installing them. It's not live yet. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. It wasn't live yet. But they were saying that, yeah, they took the opportunity to bring in the new chargers. So they had to redo all the electrics because before there were 3 dual bay chargers, that was 6 bays. So there were 3 sets of cables going into them. With the Tesla V4s, each one has an individual cable, and they also have their own cabinets. So while I was there, they were actually fitting a cabinet. We got talking to one. So a big hello to Felix, if you're watching. Thanks, Felix. We had a good old chat about things. I learnt a lot. I think you learnt a lot, a bit about chargers as well. So I hope to see you again. Felix was one of the electrical engineers who was there actually doing the work at the time. Anyway, so they've dropped in 2 Tesla cabinets. These are the ones that control the power. I'm told that the power is already to the substation, so the DNOs had come in and done it, but they've now disconnected it. So what's happened now is they were extending the cables from the substation to the Tesla cabinets, and then from the Tesla cabinets, a set of cables out to each of the chargers. And so to get the 6 bays, they have to put 6 chargers in because the Tesla V4s are single bay. Single power, single bay. They don't share power, 250 kilowatts going in, 260 I'm told, but they're rated at 250. But they've also put a couple on the opposite side. So there's a total of 8 chargers going in there now, 8 V4 chargers, and they are working through them. So they come back to it later. We're hoping to actually get there when they open them up. We've been hinted, told, suggested that they might be going live a week today. This video should come out tomorrow. So we're hoping that they're going to go live a week today. And if they are, we're going to be there to film it. And if anyone is in the area, we're going to be there Friday morning. Don't hold us to this for a number of reasons. First of all, something might go wrong. The DNO might not turn up and they won't go live. I don't want people travelling a long distance to come to chargers that aren't operational or anything to see. They could also go live before then. They could finish tomorrow and actually switch them on and we miss the grand opening. But even if they do that, it would still be worth going back on the official day of doing it and then do some filming there as well. So we're proposing to have a meet up there, meet the viewers, week on Friday. So that's tomorrow's the 19th, so it's 26th. And anyone wants to come along, there's a Starbucks there, there's a Costa Coffee over the road, and there's a pizza place inside. There's all sorts there. It's a service station. Yeah, we'll welcome you. Don't turn up until you see some of the follow-ups because we will keep you up to date. And by the way, just around the corner from that is a brand new Tesla supercharger going in. And they got 15 Tesla V4s, and that's about 2 miles away. So in the space of a couple of weeks, we're going to end up with 15 there, 8 here. So 23 superchargers going into a small village like Leyland. It's brilliant. At the same time, my favourite pub, there are 4 Osprey chargers just gone in. They are, I think I remember, the 75 kilowatts, which are great for a pub car park, because it's if they were too fast, you'd have to come out during your meal and unplug and make it available for someone else. But 75 kilowatts, you can sit there, you can have your meal, you can have your coffee, you can have a non-alcoholic drink afterwards, and then go out there and you've probably got pretty much a full charge. So massive amount of stuff going into Leyland's, really quite amazing. So we'll keep you informed on that. We'll put a lot of details on the site. We'll be getting in touch with our Patreon members. There'll be special offers for them. But keep that date set aside. Don't travel far for it. We will be doing other viewer meetups in the future. So if you're mad enough to want to meet me or see me filming somewhere, I'm anticipating being down in Birmingham shortly. I'm down in Bristol, I think week after next. We've got a trip up to Scotland that's still on. We just haven't yet had the weather. We're not going up to Scotland if it's raining. I'm telling you now, if the rain's bad here, it's not good up there. And the idea is that we want a little bit of decent weather, just a little bit dry. We did do a day trip up to Scotland for some specific filming. On those, we can't do meetups. We just work so fast. We'll pull in, we'll plug in, we'll have a cup of coffee, we'll take readings, we'll do a bit of filming, we'll unplug, and we're on our way again. It's really that quick. And on that trip, I think we did 6 or 7 stops. It was Southwaite. It was Lancaster, then Southwaite, then we went up to Gretna, then we went right the way up to Cairn Lodge, and then came back down the other side, back through Gretna, back through Southwaite, and then back home. And that was all done in a day, and we got, several hours of video out of that. And some of those have been released, others will be released in the future. So on those, we can't meet up with the viewers. We don't give our details out in advance as to where we're going to be, because we have so little time. And if we do meet up with people, we just can't get any filming done. So we will separate out meet the viewer days with filming days. Now, some of our Patreon members, we are doing a special thing for them. Because there are less of them than you, we haven't got hundreds of Patreon members. We got a very nice number, but because we got much lower numbers and because they're scattered all over the country, we will be offering them the opportunity of coming along to a specific filming session. It's not going to be ours. We're going to be there filming, but because there's only 1 or 2 or 3 Patreon members will be there at any one time, it's manageable. We can all stop and have a chat afterwards, and we'll make extra time. Just won't do one of the stops, and we'll just make extra time if any of them turn up. So we'll be in contact with Patreon members to let you know when these are happening in the future. And for us, they're great. They're a way of rewarding our Patreon members. You can come along and meet me, you can take selfies, we can do a video of you, we can take details, photos of your car, anything you want, we can all do. You buy me a coffee, I'll buy you a coffee, whatever it is. But it's really good sometimes to meet some of our Patreon members. There's a few at the moment we do chat to on the phone. It's really great. I do have to give a word of warning. If we do keep growing, this is going to get unmanageable to do this sort of thing. But at the moment, we're still small enough, still few enough Patreon. Well, too few Patreon members. So if you are considering it, click below, just get all the details. But at the moment, we can offer really special things for our Patreon viewers to give them a much better experience because they are, after all, supporting the channel. So look out for that one on the Starbucks site in Leyland. Look out for one. We've got one when the 15-bay supercharger opens up. That's in the grounds of the Holiday Inn, a place called Walton Summit. Again, just 2 miles up the road. It is just off the M6, where it crosses the M65 and about a mile from the M61. It's a real central hub. Hotel there, Holiday Inn. Great manager in there. She's new. She's hoping to promote the business a little bit. So we're trying to do some deals with her to have a meet the viewers there as well. And there'll be better facilities there, bigger charger. There'll be Tesla chargers. So we'll be able to charge Tesla and give a little bit of advice and information. So keep an eye out for that one. We'll find a way of keeping up to date on these, either with videos or with posts on X, used to be called Twitter, or other social media. But we will keep you informed, and any of these that are going ahead, we will let you know several days in advance, so that anyone who wants to come along can do. So we're not ignoring people. We just have priorities, and when we're filming. It's very difficult to do. So we're going to do a final closing bit on Octopus. Things happening. Octopus is a name most EV drivers know. If you can charge at home, it's where you will have your utility. It will be an Octopus. They do the electric go. They also do the Electroverse card as well, which gives you discounted charges. So most EV drivers are fairly well familiar with Octopus. And they are doing great things. They're doing the extra low tariffs, 7.5p overnight. They've also got other tariffs, and an interesting one out at the moment is the V2G. This is one where if you can plug your car in for about 6 hours minimum a day, whenever that is, they can use your car for buying and selling electricity. We covered this a little bit earlier. And so they can make money out of your car. They will use your car battery, and when electricity is really cheap or free, they will bring it in, store it in the battery, and at peak time, when everyone comes home, plugging in the kettle and the toaster and everything else, then your car will supply the power for some of the houses locally. And don't forget, even something like a Nissan Leaf, 24 kilowatt battery. Houses generally only use about 7 or 8 kilowatt hours in a day. So you've got a 24 kilowatt hour battery that can run 2 or 3, maybe 4 houses for a whole day. So if we're just powering a short couple of hours over peak period, it can maybe provide power for 15, 20, 30 houses locally. So it's really good. Octopus obviously make money out of it, and in return, what they do is they will always have your car as full as you want it to be, fully charged, totally free of charge. So you tell it when you plug it in, you just say, look, I'll need this car tomorrow at 7 o'clock for commuting, and at 7 o'clock it must be on 60% charge, or whatever the figure is. And whatever happens, they'll be buying and selling over the night, in the evening and early morning. But when you want to go, it will be at 60 or 70% state of charge, and it'll be free to unplug and off you go. So you get free charging, they get the trading on electricity. And obviously they get the better deal out of it, and probably make an awful lot more than 7.5 pence a kilowatt hour. Anyway, they've just gone one better. With battery technology getting better, you're getting higher power density. Well, power density simply means you get more power for the same space, weight and size of a battery. And that's not so critical on a car, but it's absolutely vital on an aircraft. And Octopus have just launched Aerovolt. There are already electric planes out there that are being used already. These are private planes, 2-seaters usually. They're being used in air clubs, in aeroplane clubs, private airplanes, and they're used for training. And they are really, really good because they're so cheap to run, and they're also quiet. You don't have the engines blurring away. So they've got involved, and they now are supplying power to these airfields, and they will be offering really special rates. I don't know if they get the 7.5p, I don't know what that equates to in miles per gallon or miles per hour or whatever, but they're going to offer a special rate. So already we have Octopus charging up aircraft, private aircraft, which are used for teaching people how to fly. We've already seen there are a number of airlines who are now starting to use electric aircraft. One of the first is DHL. Now, yeah, they have the big jets that go from Japan to America and all over the place, but they also have a lot of feeder stuff where they'll do the last couple of 100 mile. So it'll fly into a hub in London, for example, or Luton, and then they need to get that to Newcastle. And that's a local flight, a couple of 100 miles, and it's not a huge amount of weight. It's not a full DHL plane load. It's just what's going from Luton to Newcastle. So these are already under trial. They've ordered a certain number of them. They've got them up and running at the moment, and they're evaluating them, and they're finding out how long it takes to charge at the other end, how far they can go, what the power requirement is, and what the cost of running these actually is. But the initial reports coming back say these are really very, very good. So we're starting to see the small private planes. We'll see some of the DHL or the Amazon or the FedEx. These will start using these electric planes for the shorter runs, and then ultimately they'll get on to the longer runs. So in 5 or 10 years time, you never know, you could be flying off to Mallorca or Ibiza in a propeller driven, electrically powered aircraft. That'll be a change. Well, thanks for watching. I'm Dave. Well, thanks very much for watching. If you have enjoyed this video, please click the like button. It really does make a difference to the channel. YouTube recognises when people like the videos and it shows it to more people. If you'd like to see more like this, then please click the subscribe button. Also the notification bell. The notification bell simply means that when we launch a video, you'll get a notification that the video has been launched, so you'll know when the videos are coming out. You don't have to keep searching for us. Those are also very important to us for YouTube, for the algorithm, because YouTube says if people do like the videos enough to want to subscribe and see more, they must be worth seeing, so we will send them out, present them to more viewers so they can get an opportunity to have a look at them. So it's very important to us for our growth as a channel. Also have a look at our Patreon members. Mention the Patreon members within the video. Patreon members are vital to us. They provide us with support for the channel so we can actually go out and we can do things that otherwise we just couldn't afford to do. I know it doesn't cost an awful lot to go out in the car. I can fill my car up for about £6 at the overnight rate, and I can go up to the lakes and back and do some filming along the way. So the transport cost is a negligible part of it. But we do charging on the way, we have to pay for that, and we do need meals on the way. We don't work without food or coffee. So each of those trips takes a little bit out of us, and our Patreon members really, it's a fantastic support they give us, and we're paying that back now. We're getting a bit more established, and so what we're going to be doing for our Patreon members, a load of goodies involved in becoming a Patreon member, but one of those is we will be notifying our Patreon members when we're in their area, when we're going to be filming. These are not big mass meetups where 5, 10 or 50 people could turn up. These will just be 1 or 2 at a time, and you can come along, buy me a coffee and sit and have a chat. If you've got an interesting car or interesting story, we'll happily film you, and we'll do that, but it will be a much shorter duration. It's not going to be a long drawn out affair, but it's a way really of just giving something back to our Patreon members to say thank you for supporting us, you're helping the channel grow. We just want to give a little bit back to you. So if you are interested in that, details down below, patreon.com/Dave Takes It On. All the details are on there, so your support in that would be really, really appreciated. So thanks very much for watching. Hope you've enjoyed the new format. We're doing a lot more talking, a lot less overlays and pictures and videos and everything else. So it's much more the background behind the story rather than just the story which it used to be. Makes a longer video, I'm sure, and many of you will not get to the end of it. But as always, we put chapters in, so if you just want to stop off and look at one particular item, we'll put a description of each of the chapters in, so you can just jump to any of the ones you want to look at. And it's designed that you can come in, watch it for 10, 15, 20 minutes, jump out of it, come back and pick up another couple of chapters and just join us. Or if you're doing something in the background, do some work and you want something in the background, you can just leave this running in the background. And it's much more audio now, it's much more on a podcast base rather than a visual video. You've got to watch the videos we show and the overlays, the photographs and the screenshots that we normally put up. Let us know in the comments down below if you like this better as a format, or whether you'd rather go back to the older one, also whether it's too long for you. Let us know in the comments. It's an experiment for us. We're trying to make things nice bit easier and a little bit more informative, so let us know how we do. So thanks for watching. I'm Dave.